my goodness. It's another Saturday and another day to make things happen. And we're going to have some laughs today, I'm pretty sure. This is all about how to make humor a more effective part of our lives today. And I think we can all use a good laugh every now and then, can't we? So I'm just going to invite you to sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation because it is time once again for Coffee Breaks with Steve. Oh, and I need that this morning. I don't know why, but I've had a couple of nights in a row where my back bothers me. As I get older, that seems to happen more frequently, and you start to do things like blame your mattress and blame your chair and blame everything. But anyway, hey, it's still good to be here. Still got things to smile about, and I see a number of people on here already saying hello. If you are tuning in and watching us live today, make sure you say hello in the comments and make sure you do participate and in the conversation today, because we want to know that you're here. I see Shalane is there. Good morning. Corey Ann, good morning. Jerry Thompson, Shalane. And Kathy Garlick is here. Bonjour. Rick Venturi is here. And I saw some other people because I do have another screen that I have on the side here that even when people aren't saying hello, I see that some of you are tuned in. So please do feel free to say hi. It helps us make sure we know who's on here. But we also want to make sure that you are part of the conversation, because this is for all of us. We're sitting around our virtual coffee table again. Kim Baker, good meowing afternoon and happy Catterday. Kim, I can't even begin to tell you how much I look forward to seeing that particular greeting when I know you're on here. Good morning, Georgie. And just good to have you all here today. We're going to have some laughs. We have a special guest today. And again, I want to reach out and say thank you to Rick Venturi for making this recommendation and this introduction so that our guest could be here today. And we do ask that. That's another thing that I ask you as part of the Coffee Breaks family to do, is to let me know if you have ideas about topics or if you have special guests you would like to see on the show, and especially if there's somebody that you think would make an interesting guest and you want to make an introduction to. So did I say hi to Carla yet? And there's Jay Zetterval. I see Jay. Hi from Jay and Jerry. So that is fantastic. What else is going on? We're starting to get into spring weather in a lot of the country. I know here in Spokane, we went from kind of the winter / spring weather that we were still getting, where there was still a lot of overcast and the days weren't warming up that much, to just these last few days it's been getting up and hitting 70, and today it's supposed to actually get up into the mid, maybe upper 70s. Tomorrow they're saying it could get close to 80 here. So now I got to reacclimate myself for that, but that's okay. We can deal with it. I don't mind getting into the summer type of weather, and we're close to the month of May now. We should start seeing that kind of weather. I know in a lot of places that's happening. What's the weather like where you are? Some of you are in the Pacific Northwest, but you may be further west where you get more of the ocean influence still in the weather. Some of you are back in the Midwest or on the East Coast, some in the Southwest. You guys are all over the place. I love that. I love that we get an audience that tunes in from a variety of places, and I'm glad you're here. Who have I missed? Who haven't I said? Thanks, Kim. I love some of the comments. Yeah, I was supposed to hit 80 tomorrow too in your area of Utah. What are some of our special days coming up? Let's talk about some special days this week that we've got. There are a bunch of them. I had to narrow it down just because there were so many. Today is World Veterinary Day. It's always the last Saturday in April, so it's not always on the 29th, but we are celebrating it today. If you are someone who is a parent of a pet and you know that you have a vet. Okay, let's get the coffee back out here. I was going to say a veterinarian is that's the actual word. If you check in the dictionary, okay. It's going to be one of those days. I can just tell you, it is. It is World Veterinary Day, and that's international. It's not just in the United States. We celebrate that everywhere. It's also Independent Bookstore Day, which is also the last Saturday in April. There were a number of those this week too that weren't on a specific date. They were the last of this, the first of that. You're going to see that as we go through this. Today, there were a variety of other days right at the end of April. Today is also National First Ladies Day. It is also National Pool Opening Day, which is we're getting into this weather that we're starting to see in a variety of places. That's probably not a bad idea. What else? I was just glancing. National Shrimp Scampi Day is also today. And yeah, those are some other interesting ones that you might consider. I'm a shrimp scampi fan. I don't mind that. And then interestingly, we're kind of on this animal and animal pet theme. National Adopt a Shelter Pet Day is tomorrow and celebrated every April 30th, apparently. And so that's tomorrow. You can celebrate that. Also tomorrow, just as some sidelines, because I didn't have room for everything, National Bubble Tea Day, National Preparathon Day. It's where you're supposed to get your household and your family ready for any emergency. I don't know. I'm not in one of those people who's like totally into like the survivalism thing. Let's be ready for everything. It depends on what part of the country you live in. But we've always gone through the making sure our kids, or when we have grandkids staying with us, what are the fire escapes? What would you do if the smoke alarm goes off? That's part of that too. Also, tomorrow's National Military Brats Day. And the interesting thing, again, staying on this kind of pets theme, is that the last Sunday in April is also National Pet Parents Day. So that is tomorrow. And I know a number of you out there are the parents of a dog, a cat, and or some other animal. So there you go. You get to celebrate that. And now we're into May this next week. And May Day, everybody... May Day has a lot of different connotations and meanings that go with it too. But do you remember growing up, if you were in my generation, we always had May Day celebrations in school. They would set up a maypole and we would do some kind of dance around it. And it's sort of a rite of spring thing. And I didn't take the time to look up the origins of May Day. I suspect it's something from Europe. If somebody wants to look that up and stick it in the chat, please do. May 1st is also School Principals Day. And I think we're into, as we're getting into the last few weeks of school, I think there are some things coming up this week that are sort of the appreciation of school and all that goes with it, sort of appreciation of education. We have pets and we have school that we're appreciating. And what else do we have here? National Foster Care Day is the first Tuesday in May. So that's coming up on Tuesday. If any of you out there have been a foster parent, are a foster parent, or maybe you, as growing up, were in the foster system, this is a week. This is a day when we celebrate and recognize that. Mentioned there was National Principals Day. We also have this next week, Tuesday of the first full week in May. Not the first Tuesday in May, Tuesday of the first full week in May is National Teacher Appreciation Day. I guess I'm not sure if this would be considered the first full week. It would, on the calendar app that I pull up, the calendar platform that I go to, that's where it shows that it's this next Tuesday. But do we start considering a full week on Sunday or Monday? I'm not sure. But anyway, I'll go with what they said. I don't, if we end up appreciating teachers 2 Tuesdays in a row, I'm fine with that too, because teachers are very often underappreciated. We've got teachers, in fact, Kathy Garlick, my sister who is on here, is a teacher. So, and others in our family. And if you are a teacher as well, we salute you and celebrate you. May 3rd is National Two Different Colored Shoes Day. I'm curious to see if anybody on this stream here will do that this next week on Wednesday when we celebrate that. I might just go ahead and do it. I just think with our conversation today being about humor and appreciating humor, I do that with my socks and my shirts very often. Today, my shirt is very basic. My socks are pretty colorful, but I'm not sticking my foot in front of the camera to show you that. But maybe if I wear 2 different colored shoes on Wednesday, maybe I'll post a picture on Facebook. We'll see. I'll tell you what, let's do a challenge. Let's see how many of us on here are willing to wear 2 different colored shoes, even if you only do it briefly before you go out in public. Take a picture and post it on Facebook Wednesday. I'm going to see if I can remind myself to do that. You know what Thursday is, right? May the 4th be with you. It's Star Wars Day. It's the day that you have to, okay? Even if you're not a Star Wars fan, there are going to be so many memes, so many GIFs, so many jokes going out there. You got to participate in that some fashion or another. And then also the first Thursday in May is World Password Day. I have to admit, I'm not as diligent as I should be about going in and changing my passwords and putting in the ones the computer says, put in this password. Yeah, the computer will remember it. You don't have to. And it's this string of total nonsense. And that's fine on my computer. But then if I'm accessing the same site on my mobile device, it's like, shoot, that was saved on my computer, but not on my phone. But it's still a good idea. They say that's a good day to kind of go through and update all your passwords and make sure you're not doing the same password on all your sites or using something very basic like the word password. The 5th, coming up on Friday, Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo. How many of you are going to be celebrating Cinco de Mayo? It doesn't matter if you do not have Mexican roots in your ancestry. We all get to celebrate Cinco de Mayo in one way or another and go out and go to your favorite Mexican restaurant and have a fun Mexican meal. Or you can stay home and do it. You could have a margarita. If you're not into drinking alcohol, you can have a virgin margarita. So celebrating Cinco de Mayo this week. And then also, did you know that Friday, May 5th, is National Astronaut Day? And do you know why? Do you know why May 5th is National Astronaut Day? Well, I'll tell you, because I'm a nerd and I was alive when this happened. And I actually still remember it. May 5th, 1961 was the first space shot with an American astronaut, Alan Shepard, went into space, barely, on May 5th, 1961. We didn't even go into orbit on that shot. He just went up, made it into what was considered space. Capsule came back down and landed, but we had done what we had not done prior to that. We had sent a man into space. Shortly after that, we would follow up with another sort of pop gun type of flight like Alan Shepard's, and then eventually John Glenn would orbit the Earth, and we were on our way to working toward getting to the moon by the end of the 1960s, which we did, which still is amazing in so many ways, because much of the technology that was needed to get to the moon at the point that we were first sending men into space hadn't even been invented yet. And it's pretty remarkable that we did that. See, I'm a nerd. Birthdays this week, May 2nd, Tuesday, my grandson Jameson is turning 12, which just, I don't feel old as I get additional birthdays. It's when my kids and my grandkids are getting older that it makes me sometimes like, oh my gosh, how can that be? Because I'm not old enough to have grandkids, and I've got Jameson turning 12. So happy birthday to Jameson. Nick Garlick, my nephew. I got family members. I'm going to recognize the family members for sure. Nick turns, well, I'm not going to say what he turns. I'm going to be nice to the adults. But May 5th is Nick's birthday. And then dear friend Jody Platt, May 5th as well, is celebrating a birthday. And we actually have an anniversary to celebrate this week. And I know they're on here. Jay and Jerry Zetterval celebrate an anniversary this coming week on May 2nd. So happy anniversary, Jay and Jerry. I know you're kind of having a celebration weekend, and just want to congratulate you. I attended Jay and Jerry's wedding. It was during COVID, and they had to do their wedding. They had some close family there, but they did a virtual wedding. They broadcast the wedding live, and I attended virtually when they got married. So it's fun to remember that one. Hey, do you have a special day coming up this week that I missed because I didn't have it on my calendar, or I am getting old and just forgetful? Special day, a birthday, an anniversary, or something else that we need to celebrate with you. I want you to put it in the chat so that we know. And if you have a special day coming up in the month of May that you would like us to make sure we get on the calendar and celebrate with you, then please get that to me. You can private message me on Facebook if you want, or there's the email address you can send that information to, and we'll make sure that we include you in our celebrations, because we love to celebrate with people. All right, listen, I want to get to our topic. This is a very serious topic, and we need to get to this because we take things very seriously here on Coffee Breaks with Steve. I want to introduce our guest. Leigh Anne Jasheway is a stress management and humor expert, a comedy writer, a stand-up comic, and a comedy instructor and coach. She has an MPH degree, which she says either stands for Masters of Public Health or Mistress of Public Humor, and occasionally miles per hour, but only if she's had too many espressos. In lieu of actually getting a real job, Leigh Anne consults with organizations and disorganizations on how to use humor to manage stress, change, and conflict, and boost creativity, teamwork, and morale. I need to take a drink here, because this is a mouthful just to get out. Her mission, if she decides to accept it, is to help the world become healthier and more sane through laughter. Every year, she speaks to between 30 and 40 groups, mostly of people, although she has performed for dogs and once for a room full of empty chairs. She regularly creates presentations and workshops for educational institutions, hospitals, and healthcare organizations, not-for-profit groups, and corporations. In 2003, Leigh Anne won the Emma Bombeck Award for humor writing, which probably explains why she has laugh lines on her face, her stomach, and oddly her pancreas. By the way, I didn't write this introduction. I just modified it from her bio on her website. She has 26 published books, and her work has appeared in more than a dozen anthologies, including the Chicken Soup series and Marlo Thomas's The Right Words at the Right Time, second volume. She wrote a regular humor column for the Comic News for almost 10 years, and for the weekend section of the Register Guard's Eugene, Oregon paper for 9 years. Leigh Anne has hosted 2 radio programs, Women Under the Influence of Laughter on KOPT AM in Eugene, Oregon, and the Giggle Spot on All Comedy 1450. When not avoiding work and trying to find things she has misplaced, Leigh Anne teaches comedy writing and stand-up both at her local community college and online. She is also a part-time faculty member at the University of Oregon School of Journalism and Communications. Every spring, near April Fool's Day, she organizes an annual comedy benefit, the Laugh Off, and every November she coordinates the annual Northwest Women's Comedy Festival. And in her spare time, she hot flashes. Okay, with an introduction like that, and listen, if you're not already smiling a bit just with that introduction, then you definitely need to be here for this. And I just want to welcome Leigh Anne Jasheway to Coffee Breaks with Steve. Good morning, or after, as say, good meowing, afternoon, or okay, I can't. I'm just going to drink coffee here. So hopefully that bio and introduction was accurate and up to date. And if I missed anything, fill us in on what you are doing that may not have been.
Well, most of it is accurate. Post-COVID, a few things have changed. I no longer work at the University of Oregon. That's a long story. A long and funny story. I was let go and showed up on my last day in a pink slip. But mostly we'll just say that it's an accurate reflection of who I have been. I'm semi-retired now, which is like being retired only without the money to go anywhere or do anything. So.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah. Yeah.
But
I always wonder if when you say semi-retired, is that like the right half or the left half, or is it the upper half or the lower half? Which part is the part that's retired and which part is still active?
Well, I wish it were my brain. But my brain is the part that never seems to want to stop doing stuff. So, yeah. But I was really happy to see the mismatched shoe days, because one of the things I talk about a lot when I do presentations about how do we access humor, not necessarily being funny, but is letting go of ego. And if your reaction to mismatched shoes, if you have a reaction like, oh, I couldn't do that, that's ego talking, and ego is really responsible for shutting down so much of our sense of humor and play. And so if we can, here I am, 66, wearing a Snoopy t-shirt with pigtails.
That's
So
that's
it's
and,
really
and you have
unbelievable.
and I was actually a little bit surprised that you didn't show up wearing like bobbly ears and that kind of stuff, because a lot of your stuff online, that's how you okay, you're
Oh, you
there
mean
we
like
go.
this?
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. But you
Well,
know,
I
you
was saving them for later.
and you know, later's fine too. I probably shouldn't have
I
spoiled
have more.
your you got more. Excellent. I love that. You know, you mentioned sense of humor, and I think one thing that is relevant, and we talked about this because my wife, I'm a lot more kind of crazy and off the wall than my wife is. And she used to say that she married me because she doesn't have a sense of humor. And what I've tried to tell her over and over again, and I want to hear your perspective on this, is that a sense of humor doesn't mean that you're funny all the time. In fact, a lot of people who think they're funny aren't necessarily, but a sense of humor is recognizing and being able to appreciate what is funny around you, right? And that's a very personal and individual thing.
So are you ready for me to nerd out?
Go for it.
So there are scientific studies that evaluate who has a sense of humor that are based on functional MRI scans where they put electrodes on your head and then they show you incongruities, because basically sense of humor is defined as the ability to understand that something doesn't belong. I always think it's the same thing as taking your SATs. Which of the following does not belong in this set? It's the same thing. And so what they have found is that almost everybody recognizes the incongruity that can lead to laughter, but not everybody expresses it. And part of the reason that we don't express it is that we, as we grow up, hear things like grow up, get serious, act your age, that's not professional. And we take all those messages in our heads and we believe them. And basically we lose our ability to laugh when we recognize the humor in things. And so primarily the answer is everybody has a sense of humor, and it's not just humans. They have studied over 150 species, and sense of humor and play are an integral part of the mental health, social bonding, and ability to survive of numerous species. If you've ever had a dog, you know they have a sense of humor. I have koi fish. My koi fish have a sense of humor and play. I can tell when they're happy. I can tell when they express that. But as human adults, we get told that we're supposed to. I don't know if you remember, but that first year you didn't go trick-or-treating because there was pressure on you to grow up and you're too old, you're too tall. You know, you'll scare people if you show up at their door.
Or hunt for Easter eggs. I remember our daughter Shalane, who is on here, coming home from college and for the Easter break and wondering why we didn't have eggs for her to color and we weren't going to hide eggs for her. And so we ran to the store and got the eggs and got the dye and did all of that. There was not even I mean, admittedly, we didn't anticipate that she would want to do that, but the minute she brought it up, we didn't roll our eyes, or it did my heart good for her to say, I still want to do that. And you know, to this day, if any of my kids showed up at Easter in their 30s and now even getting into their 40s and said, well, I want to hunt for Easter eggs, you bet we'd be on that. Or there we go. Thank you.
Well, see, I use this. This is an Easter sock.
I like the fact that it's an Easter sock monkey disguised as the bunny.
But here's the thing: is that most of us as adults, and I know this because I've taken this sock monkey into many places, want this sock monkey because our inner child is present enough to know that we want this sock monkey, or we want something. We think back to the Legos that we played with, or some kind of outdoor game that we played, and we connect to that. And yet we're forced to, from societal's boxes or from our own inner boxes, to repress that. So, you know, I'm a comedian and I love comedians and I run an improv troupe and I love funny people. But generally speaking, it's more important for you to allow yourself to find humor and play than to be a funny person. In fact, 70% of the things we laugh at every day have absolutely nothing to do with you being around something funny. The two major theories here I go nerding out again. I was on the slide rule team in high school, and I know when I say the word slide rule, I'm dating myself, but I'm dating myself still. So some things have never changed. But basically, now I've forgotten what I was saying. The top two reasons, the theories for why humans laugh are called social bonding and arousal relief. And social bonding means we love people more, or we deal with them better if we share a sense of humor. And so that's why when you see somebody you haven't seen in a while, you laugh, regardless of whether anything funny has happened. And then arousal relief means you get aroused to a negative state of emotions like frustration or confusion or embarrassment, and you naturally laugh to relieve that stress. So social bonding comes from your heart. Arousal relief comes from your stomach, because when you're under stress, most of your decision making comes from your stomach. More electrical impulses from the stomach to the other organs than from the brain. And so 70% of the things we laugh at when we allow ourselves to laugh have nothing to do with something being funny. So people think, well, I'm not a funny person, I can't use my sense of humor. Yes, all you have to do is give yourself permission to be okay with laughing at that tense moment in the horror movie, or the news even, which is just horrifying. It's also, when you're with your friends, we tend to laugh a lot more when we're with our friends. You can be playing Scrabble and find that the funniest thing ever because of who you're playing with.
My kids will tell you, in fact, some of my favorite pictures from our holiday get-togethers, we play cards, and typically I will have my phone at the ready, because there will reach the points when we're playing together that something happens that gets the laughter going to the point where we're laughing so hard that we're crying. And I just start snapping pictures around the table, because those are some of my favorite memories from that. You talked about nerding out about this, but this was also, you didn't start off in your life and career. You referred to yourself as the accidental comic, which I love. How did you get started? How did your career in comedy and humor start, and why?
So I was the wellness coordinator at a major university in Texas. And I'd been doing that for 10 years, and I was getting bored, because wellness is basically telling people what to do. Don't eat this, don't smoke that. Basically, that's, you need to lose some weight. Things that are good for people's health, but they don't want to hear. And so 10 years of doing that, I was starting, do I still want to do this? And then I got a divorce from my first ex-husband. And I was stressed out about that. So I went to therapy, and twice, because that's all my HMO would cover. And the therapist said, you need to learn how to have fun, which was not something, I was not that fun child. I was not voted class clown. Had there been such a category, I might have been voted most likely to depress people, because my role models were Sylvia Plath and Edgar Allan Poe. Those aren't funny people. Anyway, so I went twice, and that's what she said. She said, you need to learn how to have fun. And I was kind of afraid. I really didn't know how. So I took a community college catalog, and I opened it randomly and picked something randomly without looking, and ended up on a stand-up comedy class that lasted 2 weeks. And it changed everything. Wow. Not only did I manage my stress better through the divorce, but I changed the way I programmed wellness. We created, for those of us who are old enough to remember the whiners from Saturday Night Live. They had diverticulitis. We created a group of people who went from school to school at our university and whined about why they couldn't work out or why they needed to smoke. And all of our participation rates went up. So it was purely an accident. In fact, my old college roommate, when she found out what I'm doing, she said, are you sure this is you? Because she didn't believe it was the same person.
That's great. I also think about the fact that, you were talking about ego and avoiding things like mismatched shoe day. And I mean, I'm not bragging on myself, but it just that actually puts something in perspective for me, Leigh Anne, because many of the people on here who are watching right now will tell you, first of all, I do have a thing about my socks. I it started off accidentally. It was a Christmas gift thing several years ago where we got matching socks for the grandkids and me, the grandsons and me. And they were pretty tame. They had a little bit of a pattern on them. Well, since then, either people have gifted me or I've gone out and found my own socks that are really, in many cases, pretty bright and crazy patterns. And then the key is, can I match?
Yours.
Okay, I'm doing it then. If you're doing it, I'm doing it. If I can get my foot up that high. There we go.
Excellent.
But I'm not doing that as a out of the ordinary. I got to put my shoe back on. Be funny. That's my day today. And then the key is you'll notice that was a green themed pair of socks. I will typically pick the socks first and then match the rest of my outfit to the socks. And at Christmas time, I not only have a lot of Christmas themed socks, I have a bunch of very loud, bright Christmas themed shirts that and jumpsuits and onesies that my wife will only let me appear with her in public in a certain number of those. But she can't stop me from posting them on Facebook. And again, it's helpful for you to classify that as putting aside ego, because there's always a part of me that goes, yeah, sure, I'm going to look silly doing this.
So that's ego talking.
That's the ego part.
Anytime you hear the word silly or stupid or embarrassing, and that is not to say that ego is always bad or that we all should be as silly as each other.
We need filters.
One of the things I've done in my smaller workshops is if people are at a point where wearing funny socks is a lot, then I encourage them to wear funny underwear, to do something that and then move up to something being more visible, like something as simple as wearing a bright colored lei will get people talking. And when you talk to people, social bonding kicks in.
Yes.
As long as you're being reasonable with one another. And so I remember I did a workshop for a bunch of seniors, of which I am one. And a man and his wife were in there, and he said, I love everything you're saying, but I have been so depressed for such a long time. I just don't seem to be able to access my sense of humor at all. And I noticed that 3 days in a row, he wore gray sweatpants and a gray sweatshirt. And I said, do you own anything that's not gray? And would you be willing to wear it to class next time? And he and his wife both showed up in Hawaiian shirts together. Okay. And I just said, how do you feel today? And he says, I feel better. And I said, it can be that simple.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, about why humor and laughter and that part of our system is actually beneficial to our health. I mean, physical, emotional, mental, there's so many ways that is salubrious and helpful to our lifestyle. Just talk about that aspect of humor and laughter for a minute.
Okay, so, this is one of my favorite parts because it is the nerdy part again. So basically, regular laughter. And so basically, most of us don't engage in regular laughter. So I'll get to that in a moment. But regular laughter enhances your immune system. One of the things that I did during COVID was little mini videos to try to get people to continue to laugh during lockdown, because you don't want to lose the physical benefits. So it enhances your immune system. It improves your cardiorespiratory system. While you're laughing, your heart rate and your blood pressure actually go up. But after you've laughed, they are statistically significantly reduced for up to 2 hours. And if you have high blood pressure, there are studies that show that regular laughter can reduce your blood pressure better than salt restriction. Big study in Japan that showed that. Laughter puts more oxygen back into your brain. If you've been sitting for about 6 hours, the majority of your blood and oxygen are in your rear end, and you probably don't want to think from that part of your anatomy. I'm just guessing here. And so one of the most, because it's the law of gravity, it's not the guidelines of gravity, it's the law, and anything with mass travels south. And so one of the most effective ways of moving your oxygen back into your brain and being more creative and productive and able to deal with people. I know my peopling is worse in the afternoon because I don't have the oxygen. So laughter physiologically moves that oxygen. It's been shown to be more effective in dealing with depression and anxiety than group therapy. The problem is once you're anxious or depressed, it is hard to find anything funny. So that's why it's really important to use your humor skills on a regular basis to keep yourself from sinking.
Yeah.
My personal favorite benefit of laughing has to do with the idea of belly laughing. And so basically mine, get ready, sounds like this. But it hurts. It hurts my stomach.
Yes.
1 minute of belly laughing is the equivalent in terms of abdominal toning of 25 sit-ups.
Oh.
Now, most of us never laugh for a full minute.
I'm going to start because that sounds more fun to me than sit-ups.
It's really, and if I get on the floor, my wiener dogs consider me to be a mini trampoline, and they jump off the couch and land on me. So I kind of adverse to sit-ups myself. So there's tons of benefits of laughing, and that's when I mentioned arousal relief. That means that our sense of humor is a natural way of letting go of stress. And one of the things that I try to teach people in my comedy classes is to identify those things that raise your temperature. Look at my nice big thermometer here. And instead of getting confused and embarrassed and frustrated, to turn those moments into comedy. For example, I recently rewrote my will. And so I have a couple of jokes that I did at a stand-up show that are based upon, that's a stressful thing. You have to think of not only death, you have to think of I had to think of who's going to take care of my koi fish. That was on my list because my dogs are getting everything in the will, but somebody's got to take care of the koi fish. But so one of the things I said is that it really strikes me as ironic that most people writing a will are at least 40, 45. And yet the first line of our will says, I insert name here being of sound mind and body, and none of us can do that. So I rewrote mine to say, I, Leigh Anne Jasheway, being slightly anxious most of the time and everything hurts, but not all at the same time. So at least I was honest about it. But you see, what I took was a moment of tension from the will writing process, and I let the tension go. And that's what arousal relief is. And most of us do it naturally, but we take too long. If you let every little ego thing, as well as real stress, cause you stress, then you're not going to, you're going to start getting a spiral downward into mental and physical issues. And so the goal is to do it more quickly. So I tell people that you should set a goal of laughing it out loud at least once an hour, whether anything is funny or not. It's using the physiological action of laughter to get the benefits of laughter, because sometimes we're in situations, for example, if you're alone, if you live alone, or you prefer to live alone like I do, we tend to laugh less when we're by ourselves because we don't have the social function of laughter. Right. You need to train yourself when you're watching something or reading something, or hearing something humorous to laugh. Because a lot of people online type LOL, which stands for lying online, because you're not You're just not. I know it's true. I don't have a camera in everybody's houses, but you're not laughing, and you're definitely not rolling on the floor. So don't say it, do it.
Yeah. I love that, and all of that, and it's going to take us to a couple of other things here because I can already see that we're going to run out of time before we run out of things to talk about here. But
I told you.
I know, which means that you're going to have to come back at some point. That's always my fallback when we get to talking so much. Oh, we ran out of time. Well, I guess you're going to be back on coffee breaks at some point. You have added words to the dictionary on your own. What are some of your dictionary words that you have created, and where did that come from?
The only one that pops into my mind right away is liposuctor. because there are some people, when they walk into the room, they suck the life out of the room. And so I have advice about that too. So we need to spend less time with liposuctors and more time with people who recharge our batteries. It's like, consider yourself a cell phone. You got to plug yourself in and recharge. And liposuctors are like taking too many photos in live function on your iPhone. You're going to run out of battery soon. And so a lot of people say, well, I have this person in my life who is a liposuctor. What do I do about it? You don't do anything about them except be a role model. You take care of yourself so that you're recharging your battery, so that in the time that you have to spend with somebody who is an energy vampire or a liposuctor, that you have enough energy to give to them. I was in a situation during COVID where one of my really good friends, who is a very fun and funny person, had a mental break. And I was there for her because she is a really good friend, but it was really draining me and I was not getting enough. And so I built up a system so that I would get enough recharging from people. Basically, the best thing you can do in life is make funny friends, because social bonding is vital to mental and physical health. We have to have a network. We have to have people we can count on. And if you can also laugh with them, you're doing yourself multiple benefits.
I love that.
So just make funny friends. I'm lucky because I've taught comedy for such a long time. When I met funny people, I would just stalk them until they caved in and agreed to be my friend. And it was worked really well for me. Like Rick. Rick is a friend of mine, and we share funny things online. And Rick was in my very first comedy class in Eugene. In fact, he allowed me to teach that class in his office.
Wow.
So we go back a very long way. But you need, like, one of my funny friends is a guy named Nick. He moved to Florida from Oregon, and he said, the cockroaches are so big here, I glued 2 of them together to make a coffee table. The only problem is now when I turn the light, it runs under the refrigerator, which is so true. I've lived in Florida and Texas, and the cockroaches are huge.
Oh, my gosh. Hey, before we run out of time here, somebody's already mentioned, I mentioned it in the introduction, and I think Carla mentioned on here that people need to read your books. Where can they find out more about Leigh Anne Jasheway?
So my website is the best place to go. It's accidentalcomic.com. Ooh, look at that. Look how young I look.
I know, my pictures too. And by the way, not only do I have old pictures that make me look younger, I've found these great filters online that work with current pictures too.
Yeah, I no longer care what I look about. It's just like, that was what I looked like. I looked great. But so there's a section there where you can find out about my books. Most of my books, the easiest way to get them is from me. I don't do Amazon, even though you can find my books on Amazon, but because I don't do them, a lot of them are like, when a book is hard to get, they price it like $485 or something. Yeah. Don't do that. You can get them from me. Some of them are available at libraries. Some of them are available at Barnes & Noble. So it just depends, because some of them are self-published and some of them are published by major and then minor publishers, and that depends on whether bookstores carry them. But they're all there. So if you're interested in that, I'm not really doing much in the way of trainings outside of Eugene anymore. That is my semi-retirement goal, is that I will continue to do what I'm doing. I just won't leave town to do it.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that either.
My dogs make me laugh more than anybody. They are the funniest. And so I don't like being away from them for very long. And I've done that, I used to be a national speaker, and I got tired of flying and traveling so much and staying in hotels. Although it did give me a lot of stories. Like once I broke out from the laundry detergent apparently on the sheets in a fancy hotel. And they sent a young man at 2:00 in the morning with a large bottle of moisturizer to my hotel room and said, okay, I'm coming back.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Oh, my gosh. Hey, Leigh Anne, listen, we definitely need to have you come back because even if all we do is share funny stories, that's gonna be make it worthwhile. But I know we still have a lot more we could be talking about in terms of humor and comedy and laughter. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. It has been uh, I've been laughing while we've been talking, so I know I'm having a healthy time with this. But thank you, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and good luck keeping this up and running. It sounds like a wonderful thing you're doing for everybody.
Thanks, Leigh Anne. Take care. Oh, I tell you something. This is it definitely. I need that, and that reminder to just laugh once an hour. I'm thinking about. I always have a little timer set to remind myself to be drinking water or doing different things on a regular basis. I was thinking to myself, maybe I should set a timer on my phone that's a laugh timer to get myself used to it and train myself for that. But this has been absolutely wonderful. And again, thank you to Leigh Anne for being here today. Thank you for all of you. And I would love to see, we're going to be following up in the roundtable and talking about different ways that we can find humor in daily life. But I just want to thank all of you for being here. Share your funny stories. That's always worthwhile as well. A few things coming up before we end the show today. They're coming up in the next few weeks. Next week, another author and speaker who's going to join us, Dr. Patrick Jinks, who is an expert on organizational development, but also an expert on leadership. And we're going to be talking about the fact that leadership isn't just something that happens when you are a CEO in a corporation or a manager at a business. Leadership is for everyone. And so we're going to talk about how we exercise and practice and recognize in ourselves our own leadership situations and skills, and talk a little bit more about that next week. And then yet another author the week after that, Eve O. Schaub, who has written several books. And we're going to be talking about her most recent book, which was just released in the last week or so, called Year of No Garbage. And it talks about her own experience with her family in making a decision to, for an entire year, do away with waste, do away with garbage, do away with getting rid of, and how do we manage to have a household that is using things that are reusable. And what she discovered along the way, not only in terms of the impact on their family, but what she learns about scientific issues having to do with waste management and even recycling, and what we don't know that's happening to a lot of the things that we even think we're recycling. So Eve will be on here in a couple of weeks. And then in 3 weeks, we're going to be talking, it's going to be great, just as almost as a follow-up, although it's accidental that it's that way, but a follow-up to today's conversation. We're going to be talking about play and why play is important, not just for kids, but for adults. So you're going to want to be here for that one. We got a variety of other things coming up in the next several weeks, guests and topics that we're going to be talking about. So keep on and watching for those, and keep joining us. If you have topics, as I mentioned before, that you'd like to discuss or see us discuss online, if you have guests that you would like to see us join on Coffee Breaks with Steve, make sure that you are letting us know about that. And again, if you know someone that you can make an introduction to, that's even better. Just works a little bit better if you can let them know that you know me than if I'm just reaching out. Although, we've had some great guests come on here that I just took the risk of reaching out to, and they were like, sure, I'll come on Coffee Breaks with Steve. So I'm not, talk about putting aside ego, I'm not embarrassed to ask people to come on here, but I appreciate your input on this. This is our mutual virtual coffee table. So please do that. And just a reminder as well that you can find us as well as being on Facebook. Some of you may be tuned in today on YouTube, but you can find us on YouTube, both live and after the fact, as well as on several of the podcast sites afterwards, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And that's another place that you can refer people to if you're wanting to share an episode or more than one episode of Coffee Breaks with them. Okay, listen, once again, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to join us and to be let us be part of the weekend and be a part of my weekend. That's important. I just want to remind you, as Leigh Anne was talking about, that laughter is fantastic medicine. And we do face a lot of things in life. We face a lot of trials. We face a lot of things that can bring us down, and we see it happening around us. But you know what? I think laughter is one of those things that we can integrate into what we're doing in order to not only make our own lives better, but make life better for those around us. So please do find a way through laughter and whatever other tools you have to make a difference in your world this week. God bless you. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.